One of the darkest chapters of human history, where unimaginable suffering gave birth to a timeless message of hope. In the 1930s, Germany was reeling from economic collapse and the scars of World War I. Adolf Hitler seized power in 1933, fueled by a toxic ideology of racial supremacy and anti Semitism. They blamed Jews and others for the nation's struggle, stripping them of rights through laws like Nuremberg Law, which banned Jews from public life. As World War II erupted in 1939, the Nazis' hatred escalated into the Holocaust, a genocide that claimed 6 million Jewish lives. Along with millions of Romani people, disabled individuals, and others, concentration camps became sites of unimaginable cruelty, where prisoners were starved, worked to death, or sent to gas chambers, in what the Nazis chillingly called the final solution. Into this nightmare stepped Viktor Frankl, a man whose story begins not with despair, but with a profound question: what keeps us human when everything is taken away? He was stripped of his possessions, his identity reduced to a number. His family, including his beloved wife, Tilly, was torn from him. Surrounded by barbed wire and the shadow of death, he faced hunger, brutality, and the constant threat of selection for the gas chambers. Yet, amidst this darkness, Frank, a trained psychiatrist, began to observe something extraordinary. He noticed that some prisoners, despite the horrors, held on. They shared their last scraps of bread. They whispered words of hope. They found beauty in the fleeting sunset. Frank himself clung to two lifelines: the image of his wife, whose face he conjured during a freezing march, filling him with love's warmth, and the dream of rewriting a manuscript the Nazis had destroyed, a work that would become his legacy. He realized that those who found a why to live could endure almost anyhow. He takes us through the psychological journey of the camps. First came shock, disbelief at the cruelty, as prisoners hoped for reprieve. Then apathy, a numbing shield to survive the daily grind of starvation and loss. Frank saw prisoners face a choice. Some turned selfish, even cruel, collaborating with guards to survive. Others chose compassion, offering a kind word or a crust of bread. Frank learned that while the Nazis could take everything, freedom, dignity, life, they could not take the one thing that makes us human: the freedom to choose our attitude. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, he wrote: the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Man's Search for Meaning, a psychologist's experiences at the concentration camp, by Viktor Frankl. This book is divided into two parts. The first part recounts Frank's experiences as a prisoner in the Nazis' concentration camp during World War II, and the second introduces his psychological theory, logotherapy, which emphasizes finding meaning in life as the central human motivation force. The book is a profound exploration of human resilience, suffering, and the quest for purpose. This purpose, discovered through creative work, relationships, or dignified endurance of unavoidable suffering, that enables resilience and psychological survival, offering a hopeful framework for navigating life's challenges. He forged a philosophy called logotherapy, meaning healing through meaning. He believed that life's greatest force is not pleasure or power, but the drive to find purpose. That purpose could be in what we create: a painting, a book, a kind act. It could be in what we experience: love for a partner, the beauty of starry sky. Or it could be in how we face sufferings with courage and dignity when no other path is left. Frank shares stories that bring this to life. A dying woman in the camps, finding meaning in her final moments by speaking of a tree's beauty outside her window. a grieving father later who honors his lost child through acts of service. Meaning, Frank says, is not a grand answer, but a personal one, unique to each of us, shifting from moment to moment. Even after liberation in 1945, when Allied forces uncovered the camp's horror and freed survivors like Frank, the struggle continued. Many, including Frank, learned their loved ones had perished, his wife among them. Yet he chose to rebuild, to share his message with the world. His book is a testament to the idea that meaning can transform suffering. When we no longer are able to change a situation, he wrote, we are challenged to change ourselves. Today, as we reflect on the Holocaust, a warning of what unchecked hatred can do, we also hear Frank's call to hope. Recent discussions remind us that the Holocaust's lessons are urgent. Surveys show many young people lack basic knowledge of this history, and some even deny it happened, a dangerous distortion that fuels anti-Semitism. But there's hope across the world, from schools to museums. People are working to educate, to endure. We never forget. Frank's story reminds us why this matters. His message is a light in the darkness, showing that even in the worst moments, we can choose to find meaning through love, courage, or a dream that keeps us going. In part 1, where he talks about the experiences in the concentration camp, he explores the 3 psychological phases of the camp life, that is, shock, apathy, liberation, and reintegration. Upon arrival, prisoners experienced disbelief and denial. Frank describes his own initial shock at the brutality and dehumanization, such as stripping of personal belongings and identity. Many clung to illusions like hoping for quick liberation. After the initial shock, prisoners developed emotional numbness as a defense mechanism. Apathy helped them endure daily horrors, starvation, beating, and death by detaching from emotional pain. Frank notes that this apathy was not indifference but a way to preserve mental energy from survival. After liberation, survivors faced depersonalization, struggling to reconnect with freedom and normal life. Some felt bitterness and disillusionment when the world did not fully acknowledge their suffering. A pivotal moment of Frank was realizing that while he could not control his circumstances, he could control his response. This insight became the foundation of his philosophy. He argues that suffering, when inevitable, can be transformed into a meaningful experience if one finds a purpose in it. This could be through love, creativity, or even enduring suffering with dignity. He emphasizes that even in the camps, prisoners had a degree of inner freedom. Some chose to act with compassion. He illustrates this with examples of prisoners who became capos, inmate overseers who collaborated with guards, versus those who maintained moral integrity. This freedom to choose one's attitude in any circumstance is the central tenet of the book. He describes how prisoners used mental strategies to survive, such as visualizing a future beyond the camps or finding beauty in small moments. These acts of imagination provided psychological sustenance. He recounts a moment when he gave a speech to fellow prisoners, encouraging them to find meaning in their suffering, which lifted their spirit and his own. Frank does not shy away from describing the horrors: starvation, forced labor, disease, and the constant threat of death in the gas chamber, or from exhaustion. Yet, he focuses less on the physical atrocities and more on the psychological responses to them. He notes the randomness of survival. Chance played a significant role, but mental resilience often tipped the scales. In the second part of the book, he explains logotherapy, Frank's therapeutic approach, which is contrasts with Freud's psychoanalysis and Adler's psychology that is focused on power. Logotherapy posits that the primary human drive is not pleasure or power, but the desire to find meaning in life. The core principles of logotherapy includes Life has meaning under all circumstances. He argues that meaning exists in every moment, even in suffering or death. This meaning is unique to each individual and can be discovered through three avenues: creative work or deeds, experiences or encounters, the attitude towards unavoidable sufferings. The freedom of will. Humans have the freedom to choose their attitude in any situation, no matter how dire. The inner freedom allows individuals to transcend external circumstances. Unlike animals driven by instincts or humans seeking pleasure, Frank believes the primary human motivation is to find purpose. A lack of meaning leads to existential vacuum characterized by boredom, apathy, or despair. In modern society, Frank observed that many people suffer from a sense of emptiness due to lack of meaning. This can manifest as depression, addiction, or aggression. Logotherapy helps individuals fill this vacuum by guiding them to discover their unique purpose. Suffering is not necessary for meaning, but when it is unavoidable, it can be a source of growth. Frank uses this metaphor of suffering as a task that one can approach with purpose. He discusses therapeutic techniques like de-reflection, that is, shifting focus from self-obsession to external goals or others to reduce neurotic self-concern. Paradoxical intention, that is, encouraging patients to intentionally engage with their fears, which reduces anxiety and breaks the cycle of fear. And Socratic dialogue, that is, asking questions to help patients uncover their own sources of meaning. The meaning of life differs from man to man, from day to day, and from hour to hour. What matters, therefore, is not the meaning of life in general, but rather the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment. Thus, this book is a profound exploration of human resilience and the pursuit of purpose, blending memoir with psychological insight. Some of the notable lines include: Number 1, on transforming suffering. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. On suffering and purpose. If there is a meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning in suffering. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, even as fate and death. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete. Man does not simply exist, but always decides what his existence will be, what he will become in the next moment. This reinforces the idea that humans are not passive victims of circumstances, but active agents who shapes their existence through choices. Last but not the least, on love as a source of meaning. The salvation of man is through love, and in love, I understood how a man who has nothing left in his world still may know bliss, be it only for a brief moment, in the contemplation of his beloved. Reflecting on his wife while enduring a grueling march in the camps, Frank finds that love transcends physical presence, offering spiritual sustenance. This brings me to the end of the narration of this beautiful book, which isn't just a textual account but an experience.